All right, let's dive right into this explainer and demystify the absolute ultimate attack of Jujutsu Kaisen's strongest modern sorcerer, Satoru Gojo. Now, we've all seen those jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring moments when Gojo unleashes his signature move, but today, we aren't just here to look at the explosions. We're going to break down the exact nitty-gritty mechanics of Hollow Technique Purple. We'll explore the actual physics behind it, and most importantly, we're going to settle a massive fandom debate that stems from a single critical translation error. So if you think you already know how this technique works, well, prepare to have your entire perspective shifted.
9 ropes, polarized light, crow and declaration, between front and back. You know, just hearing that iconic incantation instantly commands awe. When those words drop, whether they're boosted by Utahame Solo Forbidden Area Dance pushing the technique to 200%, or just Gojo chanting it right in the heat of battle, it signals one thing: the arrival of Hollow Technique Purple. It's a move that leaves absolute devastation in its wake, and it's so incredibly secretive that even within the elite Gojo clan, only a select few even know it exists.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the sheer awe of the technique. Look at how merging red and blue actually works, dive into the whole imaginary mass theory, uncover that crazy translation mix-up, and finally get into what virtual mass actually means. First up, Part 1, the awe of Hollow Purple. Before we can even touch the physics of it all, we really have to respect the unmatched destructive track record of this technique. We are talking about a move that fundamentally changes the topography of wherever it's fired. Just think back. When he used it on Toji Fushiguro, it fatally bypassed all of his unbelievable physical defenses and blew away a massive chunk of his torso. During the Kyoto Sister School event, it literally carved a giant trench straight through a forest just to hit the special grade curse, Hanami. And man, in the Shinjuku Showdown, a 200% purple eviscerated a 4-kilometer stretch of city blocks and destroyed Sukuna's reinforced arms. Oh, and it completely disintegrated the ultimate Shikigami, Mahoraga. It's terrifying because it doesn't just defeat opponents, it permanently alters the geography of the battlefield. Moving right along to Part 2, merging red and blue.
To really understand how purple causes this ridiculous level of destruction, we first need to break down Gojo's baseline magic system, because purple isn't just some random laser beam, it's a highly specific mathematical combination. The foundation of his entire arsenal is, of course, the Limitless. It's this wildly overpowered inherited technique that essentially brings the concept of infinity straight into reality. Through the Limitless, Gojo has absolute spatial manipulation. He gets to dictate exactly how space behaves on a fundamental level. But here's the thing, Limitless by itself is just the baseline. It's what he does with the positive and negative energy flowing through it that creates his actual attacks.
And that brings us to a really fascinating dichotomy. First, you have Cursed Technique Lapse Blue. This uses standard negative cursed energy to create this impossible scenario where space tries to correct itself, basically acting like a localized black hole that forcefully pulls things in. That's convergence. But on the flip side, we have Cursed Technique Reversal Red. By funneling positive energy into the technique instead, Gojo totally reverses the effect. So instead of pulling, red violently repels everything away. That's divergence. Simply put, blue pulls, red pushes.
So how does this build into the main event? It's a 3-step combo. Step 1, fire Lapse Blue for attraction. Step 2, fire Reversal Red for repulsion. And Step 3, collide them. By intentionally smashing these two completely contradictory and unstoppable forces together, Gojo creates an entirely new extension technique. This brutal collision of lapse and reversal brings forth an immense, wildly destructive mass that gets pushed right toward his target, the ultimate combination of his spatial manipulation.
Which brings us to Part 3, the imaginary mass theory. Now, because of the absolute destruction we just talked about, a huge debate sprang up in the fandom regarding how this attack actually functions on a subatomic level. The big, burning question was this: does Hollow Purple literally erase matter from existence? Since it seems to leave absolutely nothing behind, a lot of fans and power scalers passionately argued that Hollow Purple acts as literal matter erasure. They thought it functioned exactly like antimatter coming into contact with normal matter, just straight up deleting anything it touches from reality itself.
And fans based this extreme matter erasure theory on the English translation of the manga, which explicitly called the attack an imaginary mass. Honestly, this single phrase led to incredibly complex, brain-melting debates. People were literally pulling out theoretical physics textbooks, arguing that purple was a tachyonic field.
Particles that supposedly travel faster than light. Others suggested it figuratively multiplies matter by 0 because it combines a negative one with a positive one. The general consensus in the English-speaking fandom quickly became that hollow purple just defies normal physics to erase atomic structures. It was wild. Fans were treating Gojo like he was a quantum physicist.
But hold on, let's hit part 4, the translation mix-up.
To find the actual truth here, we need to completely pull the rug out from under this physics theory and look directly at the original Japanese text of the manga, because guys, there is a massive linguistic breakdown happening here. The actual real-world Japanese physics term for imaginary mass uses very specific kanji. However, the kanji that author Gege Akutami actually printed in the manga to describe hollow purple, they do not match that real-world physics term at all. They translate to virtual mass, not imaginary mass.
So, let's lay out the facts. The English manga translated the attack as imaginary mass, which is what sparked that whole crazy matter erasure theory. But the original Japanese text clearly uses virtual mass, and here is the absolute smoking gun. These are the exact same kanji used to describe Yuki Tsukumo's Star Rage technique. If you remember, her technique is explicitly defined by adding virtual mass to increase striking force. It has absolutely nothing to do with erasing matter. Therefore, imaginary mass was just a translator error. It was literally never the author's intent to suggest hollow purple was some physics-breaking tachyon field.
Finally, let's wrap this up with Part 5, Virtual Mass Explained.
So if it isn't existence erasure, what exactly does this virtual mass actually mean for the poor victims caught in its path? Well, one very perceptive fan perfectly described it on a community forum, calling hollow purple two literal unstoppable forces pulling everything in between apart. Just think about that for a second. It's the space caught between two diverging infinites. It isn't quietly deleting matter from reality. It's a violently destructive force that tears the physical environment to absolute shreds through sheer impossible kinetic force. Basically, it's a localized spatial wood chipper.
The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that purple is a technically massless attack that behaves as if it is dense beyond belief. It acts as a hyper-destructive wrecking ball, and because it is a virtual mass outputting cursed energy and not some conceptual, undefendable matter eraser, it actually obeys the rules of the Jujutsu power system. That is exactly why top-tier fighters like Sukuna can actually tank it or resist it if their cursed energy reinforcement is high enough, or they can even partially neutralize it using anti-domain techniques like domain amplification. I mean, if it were true existence erasure, there's no way Sukuna would have survived the Shinjuku showdown.
And this mechanical rather than conceptual nature of the technique was totally proven during the climax of that Shinjuku showdown. Yuta Okkotsu actually managed to fire off a hollow technique purple. By copying Kenjaku's technique, Yuta hijacked Gojo's body, which gave him access to the Six Eyes and the Limitless. And even though Yuta completely lacked Gojo's decades of refined experience, he successfully combined red and blue. This shows that because it operates on a strict set of spatial mechanics rather than just Gojo's sheer willpower, it can theoretically be replicated. Of course, Yuta's lack of precision caused incredible blowback that collapsed his own domain, but the point is, he did it.
Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought to take away from this explainer today. If Yuta Okkotsu could replicate hollow purple just by hijacking the Limitless, and we now know that hollow techniques are simply born from the mechanics of combining a lapse and a reversal, could any other sorcerer in history ever achieve a hollow technique of their own? As the Jujutsu universe continues to evolve, will Satoru Gojo's mastery of virtual mass remain this solitary, untouchable pinnacle? Or is it just a matter of time before a totally new generation finds a way to merge their own infinites? Thank you so much for exploring the true mechanics of hollow purple with me today. Keep asking those tough questions, and always remember to look beyond the translation.